closer we got, the more we just like would watch very bad television on Netflix and laugh and smoke cigarettes in his hotel room.
I'm how many days without cigarettes now? It's so hard.
You are a day 6.
It is so hard. I've never quit something that has been this painful.
I have to ask you, what is it like being on tour with Tim Dillon? Because I'm a huge Tim Dillon fan as well.
Yeah, he's the man. He's super generous. He's incredibly wise as far as like new media. He's helped forge a path for that himself and innovated in that realm. He's also just super funny. He's a great hang. He has great taste in restaurants. Like I said, generous with his time and, pays very well. I fucking love the guy. I'm really glad to be his buddy.
Is there anything you pick up from him stand-up wise when you go on before him and then you watch him perform? Is there something, over the months or years you've been working with him that you've felt particularly inspired by from his stand-up?
Well, it's interesting to see a guy who sells 3,600 tickets in Toronto and then he gets off stage and he just gets on his phone, like it's like nothing happened. So it's like kind of good to see that like even getting to that level of success, it's not the answer. It's like you think that like you reach some certain level and all of a sudden you're just like happy and everything. The man doesn't rest. He's always concerned with like what's next for him, like creatively, like what's going to be on the next podcast. It's just cool to see that work ethic. I think that's probably the most that I've learned from him is like not to like, rest on your laurels or like pat yourself on the back too much.
Yeah. It seems like, I've always been interested listening to his podcast, how ideas get formed, like if he's riffing with the guys he tours with during the week, or he's like, have you ever seen something come to life in conversation or something backstage going out later and then it's on the podcast, or is it more just completely separate from the stand-up?
Yeah, I mean, we were on a tour bus for the first 3 months of that tour, and there was a lot of downtime, and you'd see him like, there'd be like a spark of like something in the news or a tweet that he would read that would end up influencing the next episode. But the closer we got, the more we just like would watch very bad television on Netflix and laugh and smoke cigarettes in his hotel room. I mean, early on in our relationship, I treated it as like he was my boss and I'm, working for him. So I'm here to do a good job and stay out of his way. And then we became very close, as you do when you do, fucking 3 continents with a guy. So yeah, I mean, of course there's some of that, but he got a lot more comfortable being himself around me, as did I. And just hanging out with your friend who happens to be one of the smartest people, who's also a once in a generation broadcaster. Like, he's not sitting around running bits or being like, do you think this is interesting? But he will like have like a nugget of an idea. And then, you see that kind of like germinate later that week.
Yeah. Going back to your special, Waiting for Death to Claim Us, like I just had to bring up the gun moment, the gun incident where the guy had the gun like that. I mean, if anything speaks to your connection with the audience, it's almost convincing a guy to give you the gun off his waistband on stage.
He was going to give me the gun.
And be like, here it goes.
He was a cop. Yeah, he was a police officer from Kentucky. He came over the river to Cincinnati with his friends, and he was reaching for his gun. And then in the edit that we have, it didn't work. Like you couldn't see it, but you could hear it from a different camera angle where you hear his wife and his friends being like, "Are you fucking crazy? What are you doing?" As he's like reholstering his pistol. But yeah, if he would have given me that gun, that would have been big. That would have been a big deal.
Yeah. It's like to go from the guy acknowledges that he has a gun on him, and then you're just like, yeah, go. Can I have your gun? And he's legitimately considering it and would have given it.
Bit. Yeah. He considers it. And then you see him just like fall prey to peer pressure and he reaches for it. And then everyone at his table is like, stop. No, they're other police officers.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many hilarious moments in that special, but I've never seen anything like that in another stand-up special. convincing an audience member to lend you a firearm mid-set is another level of just the hypnosis that goes on between the audience and the performer. That's top notch.
Well, yeah. And he was like pretty cold initially in the set. And I like a lot of that set was me trying to like win him over because he was so prominently displayed in front of everyone. I was like, look at all these people. They love it. What's the matter with you? And I was able to kind of break him like a horse to the point where he was willing to give me his service revolver.
That's a superpower. You know, you're standing in line in a bank, and I know people don't rob banks anymore, but if you were alive back in the, you know, the heyday of John Dillinger, he walked in, you could just grab a microphone and say like, hey, you know, let me see your gun. Let me
that was a big anarchist money making scheme, was bank robbing. They loved that all over the world. That was a big thing they were good at.
There's something so fucking cool about robbing a bank with the air of a gentleman, like walking in a pea coat, just looking just like dressed to the nines with an Uzi, like in the bottom of your heart, you don't want to harm anyone. You're like, I'm stealing from the bank. I'm not stealing from you. Ultimately, people do get hurt. Innocent people do get hurt. But just like the swagger of like a John Dillinger, Johnny Depp walking in, just it's enticing. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, dude, for sure. There's a good book about a bank robber called Cherry. It's really easy to read. It's like a PSD veteran who has an opiate dependency, and he starts robbing banks in Cleveland to further his. They made like a bad movie of it, but the book's really fun. Mm-hmm. It's written by the guy who actually did it. He's like in prison. It's a novel, but he wrote it while he was in jail. Nico Walker.
It's called Cherry. I'll check it out.
Yeah, Cherry. Okay. Super easy to read.